Hi everyone, welcome to the second part of our 7.1 lesson. Just going to finish up, do one more graph together, and then look at some equations that are very easy to identify slope and y-intercept from looking at an equation. So this example 3 in our 7.1 notes, we're going to write the equation for this line in slope-intercept form. Again, we're starting with y is equal to mx plus b. That is slope-intercept form. That's the formula that we use. And we have to solve for b, the y-intercept, and we have to solve for the slope. So let's start with the y-intercept because it's quite easy to do. We just look for where our red line crosses the y-axis. And notice here that this line goes right through the origin. This point right here is the point 0, 0. It's 0 for x and 0 for y. So it crosses the y-axis at 0. b equals 0. Okay, whenever your line goes to the origin, it's crossing at 0 for y. Second step, we have to find the slope. So we're finding m. And we're going to calculate our rise over the run for 2 points that we pick. So what are 2 good points? Let's start with the point 0, 0. That's a great point. And you could pick this point right here. That makes life really easy. Or you could go up and pick another point. You could also pick this point or this point. Or you could even come down here if you wanted and pick one of these points. But we could go ahead and make it really easy and pick the next point that we see that's got clear coordinates. So let's pick 1, 1 as our point. Okay. And I'm calculating, I'm going to read this from left to right. So it just makes my life easy. Okay, so I'm always kind of consistent in how I find the rise over the run. So if I'm reading it left to right, I have to go from this point, point 0, 0 to point 1, 1. So the rise will be 1 over the run. Okay, the run is also 1. So my slope is equal to 1. Okay, great. Notice if you picked another point, like say you picked this point up here, okay, your rise would have been 3 over 3, which still reduces to 1 over 1. So it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick, you're always going to get the same answer for your slope because the change in y with x is constant. So my answer is going to be that the equation is y equals m, which is 1, x plus 0 for b. This equation can be simplified. There's no need for us to write plus 0. Plus 0 is the same as plus nothing. And also we don't have to write the 1 there. So this can be simplified to y is equal to x. Okay, we can drop the plus 0 because literally it means plus nothing. And 1x is the same as x. Okay, so this is just simplified. I'm doing this on purpose because I want you to be familiar with simplifying an equation. Also, now you could go backwards and figure out by looking at the equation y equals x, you could see that b is equal to 0 and that your slope is 1. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's look at equations and figure out what's my slope and what's my y-intercept from looking at just an equation, not a graph. So example 4, the rest of these examples, we're only given equations. We have to determine the slope, which is m, and determine the y-intercept b from looking at an equation. It's really important that the equation must be written in y-intercept form, or pardon me, in slope-intercept form. Remember what slope-intercept form is. Y equals mx plus b. Sorry, that's a bit messy, folks. Let me write it again. Y is equal to mx plus b. Okay. So when I'm looking at an equation, the first thing I have to do is make sure y is all by itself on the left-hand side. Okay. Then the slope will be the number that's directly attached or being multiplied by x. Okay. Finally, the last number that's all on its own, it's called a constant, that's my y-intercept. If it's out of order, I need to put it in order first so that I can get the correct values for slope and for b. Okay. Right now, we're just going to deal with questions where they're in order, but we need to be able to, in the back of our mind, we should always be checking that they're in order. So if you look at A, for example, I see that it is in the correct order because I have y all on its own, and then I have a number attached to the x, so I know that's my mx, plus a constant, so that must be b. Okay, in y-intercept form, the number all by itself is always your y-intercept. Okay, because if you were to put in a 0 for x, then mx would cancel altogether, and y would be equal to whatever value that is. In this case, y would be equal to 10 when x is 0. And that tells me that's x equals 0 is my y-axis. And so that tells me that this graph crosses the y-axis at y equals 10. Okay, so that's my value for b. So the first thing I should do is make sure it's in order, and then from there it's really easy. I can go ahead and figure out my values. Okay, so first of all, I can see that b is equal to positive 10. Okay, so the y-intercept is 10, which, by the way, is the point 0 for x, 10 for y. b equals 10. Okay, the slope here is 4. And notice something, okay? 4 could also be written as 4 over 1. That's the same as 4. So the rise is equal to 4 over the run. Well, the run is just 1. So it tells me that if I were to graph this from the point 0, 10, I would go up 4 and over 1, okay, for every other point. Let's do the next one together. Okay, so again, you're looking at it, and it's written in y-intercept form because it has y equals mx plus b. So b is equal to 2. Okay, that's my b, which is the point 0, 2. And my slope, well, what number is in front of the x? It's just a 1. Okay, so the slope is 1 or 1 over 1. I could also write 1 as 1 over 1. That's also correct. That's my rise over my run. Okay, let's do the next one. Y is equal to 2/3 x plus 4. That is in y-intercept form because I have the mx plus a number all by itself, so that last number must be b. So b is equal to 4. In other words, that's the point 0.04. And my slope is the number that's being multiplied by x, so it's 2/3. Okay, that means that the top number 2 is my rise, and the bottom number 3 is my run. Okay, positive slope. Let's do a couple more together. How about we do 3x minus 7? Okay, again, we check that it's in y-intercept form, so it should look like this. Y equals mx plus b. We should see y on its own equals some number times x plus or minus a constant, and that's what I see, so it's in correct order. My slope, let's start with slope this time. My slope is 3, or that could also be written like this, 3 over 1. 3 is the same as 3 over 1. And so that tells me that my rise is 3 and my run is 1. Okay, and what's the y-intercept? Well, this time I have b is equal to -7. I've got to subtract 7. So if I were to work backwards here, if I had looked at a graph, I would have seen that I had -7 as my b value. So I would have put in y equals 3x plus -7, which just simply reduces to, or simplifies to 3x minus 7. So if you have a negative value there at the end, that tells you that your b value, your y-intercept, is negative. It's a negative number on the y-axis, so it's below 0. So b is equal to -7. In other words, that's the point 0 for x, -7 for y. Okay. And finally, if you have an equation like this one, E, don't be alarmed if you don't see any constant at the end, if you don't see a value for B. again, think of it. Y is equal to mx plus b. So if there's nothing there, that must mean that b is 0. Okay, so b is equal to 0. In other words, this line crosses the y-axis at the point 0, 0 at the origin. Y equals 0, x equals 0. What's the slope? Well, the slope is -5, or the slope is -5 over 1. Okay, which is -5 tells me that's my rise. This line is going downhill. There's a negative slope, and the run would be 1. So it's a constant change of -5 for y and +1 for x. All right, that's the basis of slope-intercept form. You're going to do some practice now with it. In your worksheets, in your worksheet package, I'd like you to do worksheet 7. Sorry, never mind. There's no worksheet for this one. I apologize. In your textbook, page 149, and you're doing number 1, number 2, number 6, and number 8. So you're trying a little bit of both, figuring out slope-intercept form from a graph and also from an equation, identifying the slope and the y-intercept. So best of luck. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.